Okay, YouTubers, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV. Another quick game of Interplanetary I Spy going on here, but this time we're on Earth, and this is Antarctica. This is a video I initially published about 3 years ago, back in 2013, new pyramid found in Antarctica. Now, I don't actually think this is a pyramid now, even though I called it that at the time. I actually think this is some multiple structures and some kind of base of some sort. This is it's way too large to be a single structure. This thing is exactly 2 kilometers across, and is perfectly square, and each edge is 2 kilometers long. So I won't go through this too long. I'm going to try and keep this a reasonable length. Now, unfortunately, with Google Earth, the images are compressed and downsized and degraded. And you can't see a great deal of detail here, but I'm going to show you on Google Earth anyway, just to so you can find it nice and easy. You've got to look. If you orientate the planet that way, with the South America here and South Africa here, you just go to this part here of Antarctica and zoom in. Just below Coates Land here, you got Coates Land, and then we got Queen Maud Land here. Now we're just below Coates Land. And we go to Shackleton Range, just this large mountainous area, and then the Reed Mountains are part of the Shackleton Range, just below it here, which are about 60 miles across from here to here, end to end. And you have, just to the right of centre of the Reed Mountains, you have this structure here. And this is what I showed in that video. Now, I call it alien or Nazi base. I'm not saying it's either. It could be, may not be. This may actually be an Atlantis structure built by an ancient civilization that predates every civilization so far documented. Antarctica was supposedly unfrozen in the very, very distant past, millions of years ago. There is a lot of conflicting data on this. In fact, some of it's very vague indeed. In fact, a lot of the scientific data that has been gathered in this area is not even possible to get hold of easily. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about that because I don't know the exact facts about when it was unfrozen. And in fact, there are maps of Antarctica that were drawn in the 16th century, the Perry-Rees map, of course, that show the continent as an unfrozen continent without ice on it. So maybe that was copied from an ancient Atlantean map from a civilization that predates all the main civilizations we know of, like the Egyptians and the Greeks and the ancient Sumerians. Perhaps. We don't know. This is speculation, of course. That's what this channel's about. On my channel, we keep an open mind, because when doing interplanetary exploration, you have to keep an open mind, because if you don't, you may miss something very, very, very important that may affect your survival. So here we have it. We have a right angle corner here. We have a right angle here. This isn't very clear. You've got a black triangle here. Now, I initially called this a pyramid, but I don't think it is now, because it's way too big. Let's put the grid on it. It also lines up with the meridians. It also lines up in the north, east, south, west absolutely perfectly. And in fact, it fits inside the longitude and latitude lines perfectly. So whoever built this had a deep knowledge of navigation and longitude and latitude. So that does beggar some serious questions about what's going on here. Now, I'm just trying to get a ruler up here for you to show the actual size of this thing. Let's go from there to there in miles. Yeah, that's in miles. We want it in kilometers, because in fact kilometers are a universal sort of measurement. It says 1.66, but it's not. It's actually 2. Let's clear that a minute. It depends where you actually draw it from. If you go from here, okay, to there, yeah, it's 2 kilometers. There we go. Yeah, it's 2 kilometers. 1.97, but we'll say 2, because we're not seeing the whole structure here. So from there to there is 2 kilometers. And the same goes for the other edges of this thing. Now, I'm going to crack on straight away, because you cannot see a great amount of detail here. So I'm going to show you the newer images I managed to obtain from some researchers in the US who managed to help me out with this. and get me some high resolution NASA images of this particular spot. And here we have them. I'm just going to flick to them here. First I'm going to show you the main image, and this is actually a high quality image. And you can see the structure just here, but it's lopsided. This isn't orientated north like on Google Earth, so this would have been rotated slightly. But you can see the square sort of shape here, something unusual there. Okay, get rid of that. Now we'll have a look at the raw image. This is in much higher resolution, and you can see here that there's a triangle, and you can see a long straight edge here, you can see a straight edge here, you can see a right angle corner here, and there's a large rectangular structure here and another structure here. It's very hard to look at when you see it as a raw image because it's very bright. So what you have to do with a lot of these things, especially in Antarctica and places like that, is really darken it up. So let's have a look at it darkened up. There we go. And I've really darkened it down there, and I've darkened some of these lighter parts as well, just so that it can be viewed without so much glare. Because it is actually it will hurt your eyes after a while if you stare at something that bright. And you can clearly see a massive black triangle here, which is partially buried, but there seem to be little structures inside it here, like there's a right angle structure here. You've got like an outer wall going all the way through. Now this is partially buried in ice here, but you can see a structure through the ice. You can see a corner here quite clearly. You can see a long straight wall here. You can see this bit which looks like it's subsided or collapsed. You've got a long straight structure coming down the side here. You've got another long wall here at the top, but with smaller structures inside that, which may be buildings. You have outside of this main structure, you have this area here with some interesting shapes showing through the ice here. Now I couldn't tell you how thick the ice is in this area, but this is something like 6,000 feet up. So this is not at sea level, and in fact I'll show you on the map, on the Google Earth map in a minute, where it's situated and what it might relate to. So here we have it, and I'll just show you the negative of that, because that kind of shows things slightly differently. And you can see clearly this triangle here. Now that is not a natural structure, and anyone who tells me it is can go screw themselves on this one, because Mother Nature does not make equilateral triangles like that and perfectly symmetrical structures. Now of course this may be millions of years old, but it may not be. This may have been built by the Nazis in World War II or in the 1930s or 40s. I don't know. This is pure speculation, but when you see it clearly in better detail, there's definitely something here. You can see a large rectangular structure here, and a kind of shadow going around here. I mean, this is a complex of some sort. Now, whether it's a military complex, whether it was an ancient city, or just the very top part of what was a very large inhabited area, I don't know. But to me, it looks like a military sort of complex. I mean, I don't know. The pure speculation. But whatever it is man-made, or perhaps made by an alien culture that predate a human culture on Earth. Because basically this whole area has probably been frozen for about 1 million years. At least 1 million years. Let me show you it on Google Earth again. See, you can see the difference in quality there between the images, between the high-res one and the low-res on Google Earth. I mean, it's a completely different ball game. And in fact, you can still see it's an intelligent structure because it's square, but it's very, very pixelated. Now, let's run the grid to it. We want to go to view, don't we? View. Let's just view the grid on there, and I'll show you how it lines up. You can see the bottom line here lines up with that line there, and yeah, we want the grid to go. It doesn't seem to want to do it on this version. In the video it actually shows it more clearly. Let's go to the video. It actually shows the grid better on here because God, where is it? There we go. There we are. Because the grid is in smaller sections, so it gives you more of an accurate idea of what's going on. So you can see that the edges line up with the grid here. There's the top edge there, There's the right side. Here's the left side with that line, and the bottom line here. So it does line up with the grid and is perfectly orientated, and it has a main meridian going right through the centre here. You can see that line of coordinates there, and there's a line going through the middle here. So whoever built this thing had a deep knowledge of navigation and longitude and latitude, and orientated it perfectly to the compass. So was it built by the Nazis? Well, when you look at the way that the continent's been divided up by various countries around the world, I think this actual part of Shackleton Range is in the sort of disputed territory between Norway, United Kingdom, and Argentina here, so approximately here. Now, I've also got some other maps up here, and we've been doing a bit more research. And when you look at it as a bedrock, you will see the range we're talking about is right here. Shackleton Range is here. Okay. Now, is it possible that there could have been a submarine base here, World War II submarine base or something like that? Because this part of Antarctica is just an ice shelf. That is not solid ground. So basically that's ocean with ice on top of it here. So a submarine could come in there and go under the ice and then pop up right where we are. The problem is that this is actually, let's go back to Google Earth, it's about 70 miles from what would have been, or could be construed as a coastline. Now, I don't know if you can see it, but you can see this yellow line here that comes around here. That is the edge of Antarctica. This area here is just ice on top of water. In other words, in the past, if the climate was different, this would have been water. And over here, this would have all been solid ground, because we have a mountain range here. And then I'll just measure that again for you with the ruler from the pyramid structure, or whatever you want to call it, alien base or Atlantean base. Let's have that in miles. Let's run it from there, right from the centre of there to the edge of the continent. The nearest part, which would be there, about 71 miles. So if you were going to have a Nazi submarine base, surely you would have built the structure nearer over here somewhere by the edge of the continent, where you might have a secret kind of submarine base here. I don't know, but this is pure speculation. I've just been trying to work out what this thing is. It will be appearing on a very well-known TV show, this particular find, with a name similar to my channel name. That's all I can say for now. I'm not allowed to tell you anything else because it's still in the early editing stages. So, but this will be on the TV and on a major TV show in the US and around the world. So keep an eye open for that. I will let you know more about it when I know more myself. Okay, so let's have a quick look at some of the other things I've got up here. I've got another page here. I'll put links to all these pages for you so you can check this out. We've got WikiLeaks here. This is about Antarctic Nazi bases, whether it's real, the myth and the reality, Hitler's Antarctic base. Now, there's a lot of mythology about this, of course, and a lot of it is propaganda. There was some disputed territories in the area which were kind of argued over for many years in the 1930s, 40s and 50s between us and the Norwegians and the Germans and other people. There was a Operation High Jump that was sent there in 1947, but whether that was anything to do with alien bases or anything like that is still down to speculation, because there's few facts about that which on the internet which are actually real facts. There's a lot of hogwash out there about it. So don't fall too far into the conspiracy rabbit hole, because you may never come back out again. And when you're dealing with Nazi stuff, you've really got to be careful, because there are other motives going on with some websites and some articles about this thing. So let's try and keep it real. But basically, the other thing that I thought was important to realise is that Antarctica has its own tectonic plate, and may well, millions of years ago, been further up on the Earth. Let's show you on Google Earth here, because it should show the tectonic plates here, so you can see part of the tectonic plate here and here. But basically, this continent has its own separate tectonic plate. In other words, the other continents may be moving apart or closer together in certain areas, but Antarctica itself may well have been further up here and may have been squeezed down in the last 1 million or 2 or 3 million years, as some theorists have speculated. And this is entirely possible, and may have happened a lot more recently, as recently as something like 12,000 BC. This may be why there was a great flood on Earth, because basically if there was a polar shift and the surface of the Earth tilted or shifted, then this may have moved. And we know actually from the ice records that in fact the North Pole wasn't actually there initially. The North Pole was up here around the sort of New York area and the Hudson River. So we know that the North Pole has shifted from here to here in the last sort of 20,000 years, 25,000 years. So it is possible that that this also moved as well. So the actual geological or magnetic South Pole may have actually been over here somewhere. If we work it out from there, it could have been somewhere towards Australia. The actual magnetic pole could have been here. So this is all speculation, of course, but there are some facts to bear this out. The Earth does have active tectonics going on and may well have pushed this area further south into its current position, meaning that this whole area would have been unfrozen. Now this is right next to where we are, Shackleton Range, so this would have had quite a good view, being at 6,000 feet. It may be 70 miles from the coastline here, but actually that may not have been the coastline. That's the coastline as we know it now, below the ice here, this yellow line. But actually the coastline could have come in a little further, right up to these mountains perhaps. Who knows? So there we go, folks. Is it an alien base? Is it a Nazi base? Was it built by the ancient Atlantean culture that predates the Egyptians and the ancient Greeks and the Babylonians and all the other cultures that we read about? Who knows? But whatever it is, let's have a closer look at it again. Whatever it is not a natural structure, and anyone who says it is lying. Mother Nature does not build square mountains, and certainly does not build huge, black, dark, equilateral triangle shapes like this in the ice. And the more you look at, I'll just let you look at that. You can take a screenshot or whatever, and really look at it carefully. Look at it closely, and look at the structure, look at the overall shape, look at this triangle. I think there may be another triangle here, but it's hidden, because we got part of it that may have joined up here. So maybe there was a pyramid type structure here, and we're only seeing one side of it or part of it. But I actually think this is the very top part of a multi-complex. Now, whether it's an alien base, an ancient alien base, or not, or a Nazi base, doubtful. The resources needed to build something like this would have been absolutely phenomenal, especially when it was frozen in the 1930s and 40s. I don't even think the Nazi army would have been capable of doing such a thing. So I would actually go with it probably being a much more ancient structure that was built when this area was not frozen, which means that this structure could be older than any of the pyramids and any previous structure discovered on Earth. Thank you for watching, everybody. I'll see you soon.